In the tranquil setting of this 19th century country mansion, less than 20 miles from the heart of London, a team of BBC engineers have been helping to plan what can best be described as a revolution. A revolution, that is, in communication, and one that will reach straight into the home through that familiar piece of furniture, the television set. What's involved is a program system of an entirely new kind, for this one has been designed quite deliberately to put the ultimate power into the hands of every individual member of the viewing audience. The power, that is, to choose not just which part of the program you want to watch, but also when. And it's all done at the touch of a button. Ceefax, a name manufactured from seeing facts, and although the word is as yet unlikely to be a familiar one to the casual window shopper, there isn't much doubt about the interest aroused whenever the 2-year experimental service operated by the BBC has been on public view. Up until now, though, television sets able to receive the new service have been measured in tens rather than hundreds, and the more formal demonstrations have tended to involve those official organisations best placed to spread the word. It was at their annual conference, for example, that British radio and television retailers were given the chance to make up their collective minds about Ceefax. As it turned out, this get-together took place in the very same week as the government budget announcements increasing value-added tax on the products in which the conference visitors deal. But any apprehension felt at the time wasn't made apparent during the hours that a member of the BBC staff spent guiding the uninitiated through the intricacies of the operation.
Ultimately, you could transmit up to 8 magazines on each network, but this means using more lines in the frame blanking period.
The response was enthusiastic. In dealers' thoughts, perhaps, the likelihood that in brighter economic times, Ceefax, and its British independent television rival named Oracle, will offer more scope for mass sales once the switch from black and white to colour sets begins to slacken.
This will be changing all the time, as the financial...
Right. If the index changes, it can be updated more or less instantly.
Okay.
There have been regular 7-days-a-week transmissions since September 1974, just 1 week after the government sanctioned a full-scale experiment and less than 2 years after Ceefax was first announced. And so, the corporation's national television headquarters in West London has become the home also of push-button instant information. In a specially built newsroom on the 7th floor, an embryonic Ceefax editorial unit has taken shape under the guidance of a journalist editor, Colin McIntyre. Alongside him, a group of pioneers have started to turn this fledgling into a new form of journalism, which, for all its reliance on electronics and computer technology, takes its base from the old-fashioned written word. Comparison with print doesn't end there. Ceefax sub-editor Ian Morton-Smith.
Like any news service, Ceefax depends largely for its output on news agencies. Here we have a teleprinter from the Press Association, and here we have the BBC's own news service, General News Service at Broadcasting House. The sub-editor, when he wanted to get some news, would tear off the paper and then walk over to the visual display unit, which is simply a television monitor linked electronically to a typewriter keyboard and then onto the computer. And what I'm going to do now is to update the news headlines. So first of all, I have to ask the computer to display the news headlines page. This part at the top here is in fact graphics, which is not displayed on this particular monitor, but it doesn't actually interfere with what I'm going to do. Having done that, I sort out the headline that I'm going to alter. This one is in fact about a fire in Hampshire where hundreds of firemen and soldiers are fighting a blaze that covers 2 square miles of heathland. So first of all, I'm going to change the time, and then I go down and overtype this particular headline. Then I pick out a particular word which is of interest and put it in colour, just to give it a little bit of interest. And then when I've done that, I check through it to make sure I haven't made any mistakes and press the transmit button to tell the computer that the page is now ready to go back into the magazine. And this is what the headlines page looks like on an ordinary domestic television receiver. You can see here that what the graphics look like. Up at the top here we have the page number. This rolling number here is the page which is going through the magazine at any one given moment. And here we have the date and an electronically controlled clock which is from the computer. If we select page 101, we get to the Ceefax index. You can see here we have headlines on page 102, home news on 103, sport, racing, the Financial Times index. And over here we have sub-indices for all the other types of information that Ceefax has to offer. The present output of Ceefax is roughly 50 pages, but we have the facility to go up as high as 100 pages. That 100 pages constitutes what we call a magazine, and we could put out one magazine on BBC One and a totally different magazine on BBC Two. A good example of a Ceefax information page is the air travel news on page 113. Again, we have the slight pause for access time while this running number reaches 113. When that number corresponds with that, the page will appear like that. This is what we call a cycling B page, and here we have 4 sub-pages which appear on a set time scale. These times are preset by the visual display unit operator through the computer. Another example of a Ceefax page is page 115, which is the weather map. And here we can draw a map of Great Britain using our graphics facility. It should be coming up just about now. Here we use different colours for different weather conditions, so you can see at a glance the weather conditions in your area. Another type of Ceefax page is the news flash. We can superimpose important information over the top of a picture, like this. This little box here is constructed on the visual display unit, and then we just type the information into the box and send it out on network. The viewer at home would be able to program his set so that these sorts of news flashes came up automatically, and then when he'd seen them, he just presses the button on this control unit to get it to vanish. A similar sort of page to that is the subtitle page, which again is constructed in the little box at the bottom of the screen, like that. These sort of pages could be used for subtitling for deaf people or indeed in foreign languages. Ceefax can use up to 6 colours plus white, and also we have a flashing facility like that. The graphic designs which you've seen so far are made up with shapes like this on a special visual display unit, and all these shapes correspond to letters and to numbers. The graphics which I told you about just now can be made up using this special black and white graphic visual display unit, and simply by typing letters which correspond to graphic shapes we can build up pictures and words like this. And when I got the design finished completely, I just press a button and punch a tape which would then be fed into the computer, like that. Now Ceefax has a lot to offer, and it's obviously quite a sizable task. And as well as the editor, Ceefax comprises at the moment 4 sub-editors and 4 research assistants.
Hello, Ceefax Research. Ah, Mr. Johnson, thank you very much indeed for phoning. Can I first of all tell you what...
Unlike the sub-editors who spend the working day assembling and then updating and revising the news pages for immediate transmission, the researcher's role includes exploring possible new areas into which a permanent Ceefax service might expand.
Well, we can carry about 24 lines on the average page, and this would mean, I should say, about 4 items of different information.
Linda Alexander and her colleagues have discovered already that the electronic page of about 100 words readily lends itself to the kind of straightforward information which is of direct benefit to viewers and their families.
A beautiful day. Ha, 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 beautiful Sunday. This is my.
Although Ceefax was first put on the map in this laboratory at the BBC Research Department here at Kingswood Warren in Surrey, the principles involved in its birth weren't entirely new. For some time, scientists have been aware of the potential for using some of the spare lines which make up the common 625-line television picture. In fact, you can sometimes see them at the top of a picture that's been badly adjusted on a television set. And we can get the effect if we can get Alan Roberts, one of the engineers involved in Ceefax, just to twiddle one of the knobs at the back there. And now you can see the spare lines forming quite a deep black line right across the centre of the picture. Now, along 2 of these lines, it's now possible to transmit extra information without actually disturbing the ordinary television programmes. But although these hidden signals are theoretically available to every 625-line receiver, only those sets equipped with a special adapter are actually able to tune into them. And that's where the Ceefax or Oracle services have had to depend on the manufacturers of components. A full-scale national operation would be relatively cheap for the broadcasters to run, compared with the television networks as we know them today. But up until now, the cost of adapters hasn't been cheap enough to appeal to the ordinary viewer. So it's to this problem that the manufacturers have been actively addressing themselves, miniaturizing the extra circuits which make up what's known as the decoder. A decoder because its function is to separate the Ceefax messages from the rest of the ordinary television signals, memorize them, and translate them into the pages of printed information on the screen.
Of course, the key to selling a service like this is...
What's been heralded as a major step forward in the development of Ceefax and Oracle as viable propositions was announced only recently. The British end of a major American company, Texas Instruments, gave the broadcasting authorities, set manufacturers and the press details of plans for going into commercial production with their own decoder design. Jeff Schrank, technical manager.
Ceefax is the descriptive name that we use for our data processor, which decodes the Ceefax and Oracle type information and presents it in a form which it can be presented on a normal domestic TV receiver. Now, in its initial form, for reasons which will become clear later, we plan to offer this in the form of a module. And what we mean by a module is a small printed circuit board like this with all the integrated circuits mounted on, assembled, connected and tested. And we'll talk,
Forecasts were that the first decoders off the production line would probably be sold to the manufacturers at about £50, adding something in the region of £100 to the retail price of the colour receiver. But, given high sales, the £50 figure could be cut by half within 2 years, and that would please all involved. some of what the Ceefax pages are already offering the shopper in the way of information about price and quality seems similar to the ground already being covered by longer established organisations anxious to protect the consumer. But Ceefax's facility to update information quickly makes it a complementary service, and it's generally agreed that whatever's there to help the shopper make a better buy is welcome.
£4, 5, 10, 15, 60, 70, 80, 23.85, sold, 90, 23.90, bid 5.95, bid 4, 24, 5, 24, 5, sold, 24, 5, Pilgrim 1, no, 1998, £4, 5, 10, 15, 60.
While prices in the auction ring change as rapidly as they do in other markets, the farmer, no less than the consumer, needs to be kept informed. After all, what's the point of taking animals to market if the prices they're going to fetch aren't the right ones?
90, 50, 60, 70, bid only 80, bid 19, 80, 90. 40, 20 pound, 20 pound, 20 pound, 10, 20, 10, 20 to 30. 20, 30, 20, 40, 20, 50, 20, 50, 20, 50, up here with me. Sold and done at 20, 50, John Webb.
Ceefax and Oracle, sometimes referred to by the generic term of teletext, have come a long way in a short time, especially since the manufacturing and broadcasting sides agreed on a common specification so that it's possible to receive both services on the same television set. But even in what's regarded still as being a very early stage in its development, it's quite clear that teletext won't be regarded as having arrived until domestic situations like these are happening en masse. By the time that does happen, the decoder should be hidden inside and not added on to the box in the corner. And it'll be possible to flick out of ordinary television programmes through individual Ceefax pages and then back again without trailing any flexes and also without getting out of your own comfortable armchair. But undoubtedly, the ultimate success of Ceefax probably depends on one thing, apart, that is, from the obvious matter of economics, and that's content appeal. Will news headlines, business information, consumer matters, travel, sports results, and the weather remain as the basic staple diet of the 100-page magazines of the future? Or will Ceefax also provide, shall we say, company accounts, condensed books, plays, television programmes, and so on? Could Ceefax also forge tremendous links between minority groups such as the deaf and cooperate in educational facilities like the Open University? And what about a Eurofax, especially as the United Kingdom standard has already proved itself potentially exportable? But then, going to the other extreme, there's the question of miniature Ceefax operations by feeding in groups of pages of a purely local interest. That would open up all sorts of possibilities, like providing information on suburban train timetables, and even what was showing at the local cinema. But really, all that is just the beginning. Chess, bridge, crossword puzzles, and many other games appear to lend themselves to the format of the television screen. And looking even further ahead, there's the really exciting possibility of using a domestic television receiver as a home computer terminal. In fact, one day, using yet another piece of home equipment, the telephone, it's quite likely that I shall be able to dial my local bank and ask for a private, televised view of my financial position. Far-fetched? Well, hardly. After all, it's not so very long ago I discovered that by doing this, I get that.